Kingdom, a popular manga series created by Yasuhisa Hara, a historical fiction set during the Warring States period of ancient China, following the story of a boy named Shin as he rises through the ranks all the way to becoming the greatest general under the heavens. Today, we have chapter 806, which actually shines light on a different character, General Kyoukai. If we were to break down today's chapter into 3 key moments, I would say 1. The further exploration of Kyoukai's strategy for subjugating Han. 2. The growing hints as to Han Great General Rakuakan's true military prowess. And 3. How the Han King is responding to such a speedy and state-threatening invasion. To begin with, Kyoukai's strategy. When questioned by General Rikoku on how to approach this campaign, whilst being tasked with something seemingly impossible, like having minimal casualties, Kyoukai actually comes up with the plan of simply not fighting, to everyone's surprise. I mean, it's war. We're trying to conquer an entire state, so of course this plan seems ridiculous. So much that Rikoku and Rokiomi begin to laugh. It actually is funny, until Great General To agrees and says he was thinking the same thing. Now us the reader are even more perplexed, or rather intrigued. What plan has Kyoukai cooked up that managed to be on the same wavelength as one of the 6 great generals of Qin? By the end of the chapter, we are nearly given all the pieces to the puzzle. Last chapter, we had Shin and his army slowly, almost snail-like, marching on Han's city of Nanyo. It is only halfway into this chapter that we see To following suit, and then by the end of the chapter, we have another seemingly unknown army following behind To, which makes us wonder, who could this be? It was reported that Qin was only sending 160,000 men. Even us the reader were led to believe this, and now there is somehow another army of 100,000 men joining the campaign. This is quite the plot twist or cliffhanger, as we are only teased a little bit more about Kyoukai's true strategy. We don't know for sure what it is, but for certain, the slow grand marching of the 3 separate armies at different times is intentional, and a cog in the grand strategy. It would be too easy to simply conclude the slow marching as a result of a quickly put together army. Though this is a valid observation by Han, I only say this because the Heishin unit of all people have rarely had issues with acclimation of new soldiers. Moreover, the armies marching forward in succession almost bear identical resemblance to Karin's strategy during the coalition invasion. Here, she utilized grandeur and hundreds of thousands of soldiers purely as a distraction, whilst her elite unit was doing the real work, backdooring Kanko Pass. Now, I'm not saying that Shinte is so weak as to get backdoored just like that, but I mention this because Karin used this strategy as, in her words, there comes a certain number of soldiers, where it then becomes impossible to gauge accurately the exact amount of soldiers that the opposing army possesses. This then brings us to today. Combine a mass of flags with enough people to look like a fearsome army of 100,000 soldiers, you get a psychological warfare masterclass. This army behind them might not even be spearheaded by any prominent general. It could be full of garrison soldiers bordering Han. It could even be a real deal army, yes. Regardless, that isn't the purpose of having a 3rd army behind To. I think there are enough clues to deduce their true purpose. They serve the purpose of bolstering an already large invasion that is threatening the very existence of the state of Han, for the sake of scaring them all the way to the capital, to successfully follow Kyoukai's strategy of simply not fighting. Similar to the Xiao strategy of putting a lid on the country by attacking Jian and then Hango, this is one hell of a lid, more so a cookie jar, because Han might be forced to withdraw everyone to Shinte, with such a huge army looming. Furthermore, this only makes more sense as not only does Qin want minimal casualties, but they would be able to accomplish their true goal of attaining all these resources, now by the way done quite easily due to the genius of Kyoukai's grand strategy, which will then ultimately benefit their invasion of Xiao. Next, let's talk about Han's Great General Rakuakan. Up to this point, the only thing we really knew about him was that he was Han's #1 general, and he looks pretty cool, to me at least. This chapter was probably the most we've gotten to learn about him. In response to Qin's invasion, Rakuakan immediately establishes himself as wise and cautious. Recognizing that Qin intends to subjugate the entire country, he acknowledges that Han does not have the means to save all their cities, and so he desires for their forces to concentrate where it matters, the capital of Shinte, even if it means leaving castles undefended and giving up land. This is an attitude that draws parallels to Shobunkun and Sei during the Battle of Sai. It is almost like Rakuakan is saying, as long as Shinte and the Han King live, they may yet rebuild. I mean, years ago, when Qi was down to a single city or two because of the first coalition, they were still able to rebuild. Either that or the war simply doesn't end until the capital is taken, so concentrating all resources to defending it only seems like the natural decision. Additionally, though it can be said for most generals, I thought I'd mention Rakuakan seems loyal. He isn't like Gekishin from Yan, who is drawn to riches. He might be willing to go down with Han, but also he is kind of giving the vibe that he might be so reasonable as to surrender to Qin if it ever came to it. Perhaps getting into a dire situation that requires his wise discretion, maybe the sparing of Han's Princess Nei, which might involve Rakuakan joining Qin's ranks, but more likely agreeing to not get in their way and remain neutral. It might not be obvious right now, but his relationship with Princess Nei could play a significant role later in the story. Speaking of role, I believe he will be Shin's opponent to overcome to finally attain the rank of Great General. He isn't necessarily fodder, but he also isn't a Shibisho or a Boku, so he is a timely roadblock to challenge Shin and push him to greater heights. In terms of his military prowess, there has to be a reason that he is Han's #1 general. It isn't confirmed, but it is implied that he might also be Han's chief of military affairs, so he definitely isn't someone to underestimate, seeing as he is pretty much Han's Roboku or their version of Shohei-kun. Epic. Since there isn't much to work off from the little we've seen, he is the type of general that always considers the worst and has contingencies for these situations. He will always do what's necessary for his country, and he brainstorms every single scenario before making a decision, whilst also being able to think on the fly. He is quite different to most generals, who would immediately set out to the battlefield first and then think of a strategy. This cautiousness will likely serve as a great strength, but the weakness is very obvious, and once again, is something that could be set up for Shin to take advantage of perfectly with his style. Moving on, I'd like to shed light on the way this chapter explores the theme of sacrifice, or more specifically, sacrifice out of necessity. This chapter explores this theme through the conversation between Princess Nei and her father, the Han King, when she finds it difficult to accept losing some of their lands, to which her father declares this as a necessary sacrifice. This idea is one that is recurring throughout Kingdom. One instance lies with our goat in the West, Sei and his entire ideology. Sei views the destruction of the other 6 kingdoms as a necessary sacrifice in order to bring about a world that does not know war through the method of military might. The current status quo has led to war never ending because no matter the alliances built, there is no guarantee that the next generation and generations after that will maintain such an alliance. So, in Sei's mind, the only way to overcome this eternal issue is to smash the chessboard entirely and create a new one that isn't bound to one worldview, normalizing constant war throughout the entirety of the country. Consequently, the point here is that sacrifice is something that will always exist in order to achieve a desire, and so it is inherently subjective. In the case of Han, due to not having a plethora of great generals at their disposal like Qin, as sad as it is, since before the princess was born, Han has always lacked the power to retain all its lands during war, and thus required the wisdom to sacrifice out of necessity, meaning using what little power they have to protect only what is absolutely essential. Therefore, Princess Nei represents many people in that this is a reality that must be accepted, a theme withstanding the test of time, and it makes sense being that she is young, and sacrifice is something often experienced for one to understand and learn properly. It is interesting to see how the idea of sacrifice can vary for different kingdoms, and it's cool that Hara chose to use the Han King to explore it a little bit here. As for predictions, I've already mentioned this in previous videos, but the third army at the end of the chapter, as much as I would love for it to be Jotunmo or Heki, the more probable result will be the existence of a third filler army for the sake of psychological warfare, and also Rakuakan and Shin will be a reality. It is really time for Shin to take that next step. He is already one of, for better lack of words, Qin's 3 heavenly kings, one step right below Great General. He only now needs the feats to support his ascension, since he already has honestly Great General level responsibilities. Anyway, Kingdom family, thank you for tuning in. It's been your boy, the greatest Kingdom YouTuber under the heavens, your future Great General, me Ken. Let me know what you guys think of this chapter in the comment section below. Let me know what you cooked up. Did you enjoy this video? Check out my other videos. Be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to stay updated on my latest videos. I appreciate you guys.